Hi everybody, this is Siddhartha Valicharla from No Real India. Over the last few days, I have made a couple of videos. In the first video, I talked about BIPOC and how while South Asians we are people of color, we can still be distinguished into privileged people of color and oppressed people of color. And the reason we can do that is because of systemic caste hierarchies that are make the soul of Indian society. It's the body, soul, mind, everything. So, in that context, you can divide South Asians, mostly Indians, into privileged caste Indians and oppressed caste Indians. Um, the second video, so that was the first video that I made, sharing that distinction. The second video I made was urging or further distinguishing how you can identify these South Asians who show up at these Black Lives Matters protests. Sikhs will show up with Sikhs for Black Lives Matter. Indian Muslims will show up with Muslims for Black Lives Matter. Dalits or untouchable community will show up as Dalit Indians for Black Lives Matter or Amabedkarites for Black Lives Matter. The remaining group, the privileged caste Indians, will always show up as South Asians for Black Lives Matter. Having shared that, I got a couple of questions back saying, how come, for one, we never heard of it? These were questions from Americans and other black friends that I have. The questions that were asked were, how come we didn't know about this caste system? I have a lot of Indian friends. Is this how it is? And the other question they asked was, well, why is it that it's not so prominent? Why is not Dalit Indians for Black Lives Matter as prominent? Why aren't there more of those showing up and more of them that show up are South Asians for Black Lives Matter? So I just wanted to quickly address these things. Most Indians here are from the privileged castes, especially those who have come here before 1990s, even 2000, up until the IT boom happened, are from the privileged castes. So it's highly unlikely that privileged caste folks actually talk about their privilege in a country where it doesn't matter for them or where they've already taken the benefits and are enjoying a life here in America. There is no need for them to bring it up and talk. So that's the reason why, and it then percolates to the second generation who were born and probably are your friends. They don't see it in some cases, but also they don't see a need to discuss it. But you can definitely see that they do practice caste related traditions in terms of who they marry, who they interact with, and eventually what fields of jobs they go into. This is very subtle. Most people may not gather this, but trust me, you will not find a privileged caste person in any kind of service oriented job. Like, for example, you will find Brahmins only being doctors, but I highly doubt there is any Brahmin who is a nurse practitioner because that is a service oriented job, while the doctor is much more of a privileged job. The only nurses you'll find who are of Indian origin would be probably Sikhs or Muslims, not really Hindus, because for them, status matters, so service doesn't. So something subtle like that. Those are all caste related things that sometimes even the second generation may not know, and uh, you can see some of those things. So effectively, privileged caste people, in fact, if a privileged caste person cannot become a doctor and they can only have the capability of becoming a nurse or whatnot, they'll actually not become a nurse, but somehow or the other own the hospital and sit in the board, but they'll never actually learn or go through the course and be a nurse practitioner. So anything which is service oriented job, you'd think, which serves another person per se, um, is not something that the privileged caste people will do. So there are some subtle such things which you can pick up, and definitely the marriage is one such thing where Indians will always marry who their parents pick, or somehow even if they find it's always another Indian, but they'll kind of fall in their same caste hierarchy. So that's one thing. That's the reason why many of you do not know about the existence of such strong hierarchical caste oppressive system, even though you have Indian friends, because they are more or less mostly privileged caste Indians. So that explains that part of it. The second part of the question is, why aren't more Ambedkarites or Dalit Indians not speaking up and everything? There are a few reasons for this. The first thing is, again, we are very few in number. Of the 10 million Indians, of a million Indians, I don't know, however many there are, we are only like less than 5%, the oppressed caste folks. And trust me, we have come here only in the last 30 or odd years. I myself came here 15 years ago. And when we come here, we almost breathe free air for the first time, because we can walk down the street and nobody's calling us by a casteist slur. So for us, that gives a false sense of, oh, this land seems to be okay. We're not very aware of the racism that goes around and everything. And even we are also unaware when somebody, like a privileged caste person, will immediately get it if somebody were to discriminate them based on brown skin or whatnot. But we won't get it because we are exposed to even more explicit discrimination back in India, calling us by our caste names, caste slurs, and saying, you untouchable, you idiot, you moron, you are untouchable who's fit for nothing or something. So we hear such things. So subtle racism against us is not registered by us. So in some cases, we are not fully aware of that. The other thing that also happens is similar to how explicitly we are discriminated back in India. We are also desensitized. Killings of Dalit folks is pretty common. There are at least 3 to 10 Dalits killed in a gruesome manner every week. At least a couple to 5 Dalit women are raped every day. Every week, at least a few huts, because some of the Dalit folks still live in like thatched huts with straw roofs and everything. They are torched. So we see them on a constant basis. In fact, I have to cut out a lot of my Facebook feed coming from India because every other one is otherwise. Somebody getting beaten, lynched, somebody being paraded naked. These things really happen in India, and Indian media kind of captures it, but in like the 10th page in the 12-page news thing. So many of us are also desensitized because there is only so much we can take, and we are constantly bombarded with our Dalit brothers and sisters being oppressed in the most gruesome manner. So that's one of the reasons also why some of the things don't hit us right in the face, even though when we see it. But that still doesn't excuse us from not showing up. That's where I think some of us who are now understanding the whole situation, our position here in American society as both Indians that rest of the world sees us as, but also within the Indian society as oppressed castes, we are just finding our feet. So it's just a bit of patience, learning, and those of us who are understanding it really, really stick to Dr. Ambedkar's final words of advice: educate, agitate, and organize. And I'm personally very, very invested in educating. That's why I do these videos. I also host events where we talk about caste system, untouchability, and arranged marriages, etc., which kind of draw Americans in to understand more about these subtle things in Indian culture. But trust me, there are a few of us who are doing it, and we are only going to grow in number and gain strength, and we'll bring Americans and the rest of the world to know real India. So that's one of the reasons, the limited number of us being here and ourselves starting to educate the larger scheme of things happening, and also then starting to educate in an osmosis way as to where we come from, who we are, and why we are different from other Indians. It's happening. That's why you don't see us pouring out into the streets with more Dalit Indians or Ambedkarites for Black Lives Matter yet, but we will be there, and we are there. We understand oppression, and we feel it, and our community faces it every single day. So again, thank you for listening, and I hope I've helped you learn a little more about Indian culture and the nuanced system of oppression that's within the Indian caste system. Thank you.